Welcome back to Ohio Counseling Conversations, the official podcast of the Ohio Counseling Association, bringing you updates and conversations from around the state. This episode features a conversation with Dr. DoHee Kim-Appel. She is a professor in the Master of Arts in Counseling program at Heidelberg University. She has decades of experience in the field of behavioral health and has worked with diverse populations of clients across a spectrum of emotional and substance-related issues, including youth, individuals, couples, and families. Dr. Kim-Appel is a Korean American, born and raised in South Korea, and uses pronouns she and her. And as always, I'm your host today, Dr. Marisa Cargill, a counselor at Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Ohio, and counselor educator at the University of Akron. Thanks for listening. Well, welcome, Dr. DoHee. We are so happy to have you at Ohio Counseling Conversations, one of our very first episodes here. We're so excited to have you join us, one of our past OCA presidents, and such a great bio, an extensive bio, and really excited for all the knowledge and experience you bring to the organization. Really just want to speak to you today about Ohio counseling in general, and get your experience and wisdom to share with other counseling students, counseling professionals, and people in general to understand more about what we do as counselors. So let's kick this off and really talk about, your work as a counselor. How long have you been at this as a counselor?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your invitation. I'm so excited. Let's see, my counselor, it's been early 2000. And so I guess first license was about 205 and 206-ish. So it's
Okay,
been
yeah.
over 17 years.
Okay, awesome. And um, I know that you've been involved in the Ohio Counseling Association for quite some time, but what made you want to be a counselor? How did you end up in this profession?
Well, I think maybe I'm not the only one. Has many stories how you become a counselor. And 33 years ago, I came to United States as a grad student to pursue my grad degree in fine art. And of course, the information was not quite correct. So I decided to volunteer one of the hospital system and work with a high-risk mother's floor. And I did some creative work with them. And one of the director said, "You're good with the people." And I was like laughing, like, "You're kidding me. My English is very, very, very small." But anyhow, talked about art therapy. And I thought, what is that? I never knew
Mm,
anything about mental health issues. So I went to interview with that program and I was hooked. Where art therapists can learn about art, psychotherapy and psychopathology. I was getting so excited. So
mm,
then I completed that art therapy, master's in art therapy program, and I was so excited to learn more. So I pursued master's in marriage and family counseling therapy. And then, boy, I was really hooked by then. So I really wanted to share what I have learned with students and professionals.
mm.
So I decided to pursue my counselor education supervision PhD degree at the University of Akron. At the time, it was a guidance counseling. So, my, time
Yes.
frame. So,
Right.
anywho, that's how I became a counselor. Yes.
Wow. So not the initial goal, but it came, to this field and then led you somehow into Ohio Counseling Association as well. So tell us how you ended up in the organization.
So, I was always a curious person. Of course, I left my country to learn something different and new. Um, Actually, I initially I kind of got involved with Association for Council Education and Supervision. We call ACES, right? And of course, that has North Central ACES and NACES. So I worked there. I went there. I was very curious. So I showed up in different meetings, events, and then and some others noticed me. Like, there is an Asian woman keeps showing up in the meetings asking questions. And then a few people reached out. Do you want to be part of this? Or do you want to be part of that? And I was just so excited. And some of the individuals came and talked to me. So finally, I created international student and a faculty international interest network within in an ACES. Then I start teaching and pay more attention to OCA. Again, I attended meetings and listened and asked questions. And that's how it started. And then people noticed me again, and then I was excited to be noticed. So then we had a conversation, and that's how I got involved in OCA. The curiosity really paved my professional path.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing you say is like when you follow that curiosity, it rewarded you in a lot of opportunities, it sounds like.
Yeah. And
Wow.
also along the way, there are a couple of occasions that when I was struggling to make some decision of my path, there was always somebody noticed me. That's something that I didn't know about myself.
Mm,
And I took a chance with what they said about me. It turned out to be my lucky day that really helped me. So I've been reflecting a lot about how other people guided me into a place
mm,
where I end up that I was very excited to be in.
mm,
Um, I guess I was doing something at the time that I had to kind of surviving
mhm,
way of working because I had to learn language, I had to learn culture, and I was busy, looking around. I was busy looking around other things.
mhm,
But then I guess because I was doing what I was doing, and maybe that helped other people notice me. And this
mhm,
is something that I share with my students that you do what you love to do at that moment, and then
mhm,
other people see you because you shine, right?
mhm,
And so I learned from those, I would say 3 doors, and evolving 3 doors later
mhm.
that I learned to trust nature and trust my my instinct, I guess. So I
Mhm,
just beginning to trust myself, and that's been very helpful, and still listening
yeah.
to others as well.
Mhm. So following that path of curiosity also put you in the path of like being noticed, and being noticed also helped build some insight because other people were seeing things that maybe you weren't seeing in those moments as well. That's
Yeah,
big.
exactly.
That's really big, and helpful, really helpful, especially as young professionals. So that's great, great insight. So, you mentioned how long you've been in the counseling field. So, how long have you been part of OCA?
Let's see. It's been about on and off 15 years because I was moved away, and then came back. So
Yeah.
about.
Beyond following that curiosity, what type of advice would you give students or new professionals looking for ways to get involved?
Okay. So, of course, first of all, you have to join the membership, right?
Right. First step, join.
Yes. And as a new member, I would recommend starting from your regional chapter, and because there's no additional fee, uh, it's just included in your annual
Hmm.
membership. So that's a really good place to start. And and then I would recommend, just like what I have done, that attend the meetings, right? Listen and ask some questions and participate in those some activities they offer. Um, and explore your curiosity and interest and see how other students and other counselor professionals obtaining, maintaining their professional identity. Also, get help to achieve your professional goals. Um, and when you thought about something, more likely others share some common interest as well, so that's exciting. And finding your voice within your professional network, it become, I think it's your professional lifeline. um, so you're not alone, we're all there together. Also, OCA is a new program, that leadership certificate program, which is again free for the members. And this one really helps to know overall of OCA, past and present, more likely, where we're going. And if you have a little more room that you can spend a little bit of fee to join divisions with a specific area of your interest, right? So this is all membership available, attend and listen and all that. By then, probably you know a lot about OCA. Then I encourage you to entertain the thought of leading chapters and divisions of the committees that you're passionate about.
That's really great advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an exciting time for new members to get involved in OCA. A lot happening at OCA.
I love that you say professional lifeline. That's such a great way to conceptualize how OCA can support people and how getting involved and staying involved really is that supportive, because you do have those connections that help you, when times are challenging, when you need that help to stay afloat in different, situations. And so there are so many people who can help in those types of matters. So I see that, and I think that's such a great way to conceptualize it, a professional lifeline. And love that we highlight that leadership certificate program, because that's new, and taking advantage of it is, you know, easy to do since we offer it for free. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Now, speaking of leadership, how would you define leadership in the counseling field?
Oh boy, that's really big. I think with beginner's mindset, I always remind myself it is so important. Um, and as a builder, and I think leaders need some take risks, and of course advocating for clients and members and our profession for sure, and challenging some status quo, and that's another task what leadership defines, and motivates and support members to achieve their something different and effective, and benefit the consumers. I mean, clients and our members and customers and their community, right? And that speaking of OCA, I have a supportive and creative-minded, all these members came up with, such as you, your group, podcast. And I think some of the creative work happening at OCA, it just does not happen overnight. It starts, you know, coming with some small discussion here and there, and then that evolves, and then finally we make decision collaboratively. I think one of the strengths of OCA at this point is collaborative work. It's lots of partnership. I am so excited about that. So yeah, and I think that's what leadership need to be done to create that platform for
Mhm.
creative mind grow and get mature and
Mhm.
validate their effort and time for sure.
I love that, like building and creating, and sometimes it's hard to think of counselors as builders and creators, but that's really a lot of what we do when we think about that. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you see like the podcast building and creating and supporting the Ohio Counseling Association as we move forward.
Yes. I think sometimes we're within the bubble, OCA bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we know what OCA is about, but then our community, they don't know what OCA is about. I think we have a lot to offer. All our professionals coming from so many different walks of life and their experiences, expertise. And I think a podcast is a great segue to share with the community who we are, what we do. We are here to serve. I think that's so, so important.
Switching gears a little bit, what types of challenges do you see in the counseling field at this point?
That's another big question.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think social climate and diversity, equity, relating the diversity, equity, inclusion, that really directly impact on our profession, helping profession in general, and say, but that's the core of who we are as a counselors, and that's been very challenging. Work to embrace all the diversity, and I think this will be continued. It's been historically. We felt like it came along, but we have not really evolved. And so I hope that we continue to work on this one. I don't think it will be never ends, because it will help us to embrace our uh, diverse clients, and hopefully that kind of a little more settled down and able to fully accept diversity, equity, inclusion, and it doesn't become barrier and treating and growing as a profession. And of course, license portability, that's been an ongoing issue, even though we made some progress. But 50 states is such a different rules and laws. So that's been another barrier for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have more building to do uh, as we continue on. What are some exciting things, alternatively, that you see happening in the counseling field?
Um, Something that I learned during pandemic, that telehealth, that in my whole profession, never thought telehealth was going to be on the table, right? And it's a more accepting, and telehealth been recognized benefit all clients that did not have opportunity. So that's been very helpful and exciting one. And I don't know if I can frame this as a exciting thing, but during the pandemic, and I think we learned so much and they gained a better understanding of human behaviors and needs for human connecting. Um, so it was unfortunate, but it turned out to kind of opened a wide opened door for us to explore how we can reach our clients to serve more effectively.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, like that we could do things that we thought formerly we couldn't do. That, oh look, we're doing it, and that we can
Yeah,
do it effectively. So that's a
yeah,
great point.
become outside of box thinkers, I guess, and
Mm-hmm.
much more
Yeah,
systemic thinkers. So
yeah.
yes.
Force us to think outside that box quite a bit.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, moving into some of the other positives of our field, who are some folks that you admire in our field?
There's too many. If you're asking the names, probably Dr. Cortland Lee, that I think he's a pioneer of multicultural counseling, and that recently I worked with him publishing some of the, one of the chapters in his book. I admire here persistent and encouragement, embracing new professionals. And that's how I met him. So very exciting. Without names, I think some of the kind of quote unquote mentors, or I consider mentors, and they are kind of listeners and observers, that they discover the shining new professionals, and I welcome them when they meet them. I think this is in my experience when you go to professional conference, and oftentimes that there's a congregation of have not seen each other. They work together in committees and all various activities. But when new professionals step in and new members step at the door, they don't know anyone. And I admire leader watching them, observing them, who is coming through that door, and go and meet them and welcome them, and take that person, walk around, introduce to other professionals, make the connection. And I think that empowers that new member and individuals and students and whatever, wherever they are in their path of profession. I think that is just so powerful as leaders and mentors. I do admire those individuals.
Yeah, almost like shepherding them, into, I don't know if that's the best analogy, but that's like kind of the visual that I was imagining as you were saying that, like that caring for them in that way, and leading them. So that is powerful. And especially when you're a new professional, it's scary. So
yeah. And it helps them to feel belong, right? We're all about diversity, inclusion, equity, and belongings. And how do we embrace all these new members or person that you never met and in those professional conference? I think that will be very, very helpful for them to feel belong, and they wanted to come more, right? And they wanted to get engaged. They want to get involved. They get excited about it. So I think that creating that the space, welcoming space, I think that is so important.
And those type of people help them find that voice to say, oh, this is how I want to engage, or how I want to be involved in the organization. So that's beyond meaningful, and not just to then that person, it becomes meaningful to the organization as well. So it's a win-win.
And hopefully they will, and then hopefully they will continue doing the same thing to new members. So grateful of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. So I have this final question, and it kind of comes back to the name of the podcast. So we're having these conversations. The goal in the podcast is to be having conversations, related to maybe some topics in the field, related to the organization in general. But what are some important conversations that you feel counselors in Ohio should be having, either with each other or with their clients right now?
I think we need to continue to strengthen ability and able to engage and outreach for the individual needs of mental health and addiction treatment. And some of the most need this kind of treatment, more likely they don't, due to lack of accessibility and funding issues, right? So those are conversations that I think we need to have ongoing, and integrate other form of physical and emotional health approach as well. And I am a huge fan of interdisciplinary approach, focus on health in general, right? And I think OCA last 2 years created a community mental health support system. So we invited social work association, counseling board, and psychology association. We reach out to all these professionals and mental health addiction, services, and we had this kind of conversation about that, and we can do it isolated in silo, but I think it will be helpful to have communication with all this organization, how we all can work together to open this opportunity for the members really need to access and fund it to get healthier. And counseling need to be in the table to discussing overall approach to health. So I think that's the most crucial thing that we have to continue to do.
So keep working together. I think that's, you know, it's well said, and it's maybe something that's easy to forget. So it's a great reminder. Thank you, Dr. DoHee. I really appreciate that sentiment, and I think we need to keep saying it. Easy mantra to keep in our minds. So I know I said that this is the last question, but have we missed anything? Is there any parting advice or wisdom you'd like to share with our members or our listeners?
I would just keep saying, keep coming and listen and ask questions. I'm a fan of asking questions. Why not, right? Some of the things that we stayed in a spot, and sometimes new voices and new ideas kind of wake us up, like we perk, like, oh my goodness, how can did we miss about that? So I think that will be really helpful to and add your new voice. I mean, members listening to this one, and please join OCA. Add your thoughts and ideas and the creativity. I think it will strengthen all our profession. Eventually, it benefits our clients and community. So please join us.
We welcome that curiosity. Yes, we want that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. DoHee. We really appreciate it. And we're so happy that you supported Ohio Counseling Conversations really from its, beginning of its evolution. And we're happy to have you joined us, in one of this, very early episodes. So thank you again. And we're going to see you all, or hear you all, talk to you all next time. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us so you can stay up to date with Ohio Counseling Conversations online and wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're a counselor in Ohio and would like to get involved as a part of production or as a guest, or know someone who might be interested, you can email us at ohiocounselingconversations@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
This podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Counseling Association's Media, Public Relations, and Membership Committee and its podcast subcommittee. This episode was executive produced by Hayle Fisher and Marisa Cargill. Research and fact-checking by Kailey Bradley. Editing by Leah Wood. Original music by Elijah Sototer Wood. Special thanks to Stacey Tasmer, Shardine Simpson, DoHee Kim-Appel, Alma Moore, Amy Barcelo, and Chase Morgan-Swaney. Views, beliefs, or references mentioned in this episode do not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by the Ohio Counseling Association. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the podcast does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect the view of the Ohio Counseling Association or any of its officials. Thank you.